Hello, my dear friend, and welcome back to Fluent English Journey. This is the place where we don't just learn English, we also learn how to live better, think smarter, and grow stronger in every part of our lives. I'm so happy you're here today because what we are going to talk about can truly change your life. Today, we're talking about being proactive. Now, proactive might sound like a simple word. You've probably heard it before. But don't let its simplicity fool you. It is one of the most powerful habits anyone can develop. So, let me ask you something right at the beginning. Are you someone who waits for things to happen or someone who makes things happen? Think about it for a moment. When something goes wrong, do you usually blame the circumstances, other people, or bad luck? Or do you stop and ask yourself, okay, what can I do about this? That tiny difference between waiting and acting, that is the essence of being proactive. And that's exactly what we're going to explore together in this episode. In our daily lives, it's easy to get stuck in routines and forget how much control we actually have. We wake up, check our phones, rush through the day, and often feel like life is just happening to us, not because of us. Maybe your boss gives you extra work. Maybe your teacher surprises you with a test. Or maybe your plans suddenly fall apart. In moments like these, it's so easy to say, well, what can I do? It's not my fault. But here's the truth, that's a reactive mindset. Reactive people let life push them around. They respond to whatever happens, rather than taking control of their choices. A proactive person, on the other hand, looks at the same situation and says, okay, it's not perfect, but what is my next move? That is the beauty of being proactive. It's not about controlling everything around you. Life will always have things you cannot change, like the weather, other people's actions, or unexpected challenges. But it is about controlling yourself, your thoughts, your reactions, and your actions. Even when things don't go as planned, you have a choice. You can't control bad weather, but you can choose your attitude. You can't control how other people behave, but you can decide how you respond. That choice is what separates proactive people from everyone else. In this episode, we will break this idea down step by step. First, we will look at what proactivity really means and how it is different from simply being reactive. Then we will explore the mindset behind it, what proactive people think about themselves, their lives, and their abilities. We will also discuss why many of us struggle to be proactive, even when we want to, and most importantly, what we can do to change that. I will share real-life examples and practical tips you can start using today. These tips will help you be more proactive in your studies, your relationships, your personal goals, and basically in all parts of your life. Before we dive deeper, take a moment to reflect. When was the last time you felt stuck? Maybe you wanted to try something new, but you waited for the right time or waited for someone else to push you. But what if that right time never comes? What if the person you are waiting for is actually you? Being proactive is about creating opportunities for yourself, rather than waiting for life to hand them to you. So, as you listen to this episode, remember this simple idea. You are not just a passenger in your own life, you are the driver. You decide where you are going, how fast you go, and which direction to take. Once you truly understand that, everything changes, your confidence, your habits, and your future. Take a deep breath, relax, and open your mind. By the end of this episode, you will not only understand what it means to be proactive, but also how to put it into practice every single day. This is Fluent English Journey, and today we are coding a new mindset, the mindset of action, growth, and responsibility. Understanding proactivity. Now that we've set the mood, let's take a closer look at what being proactive really means. Many people have heard the word proactive, but not everyone truly understands it. Some think it just means being busy all the time. Others think it means being pushy or trying to control everything around them. But that is not what being proactive is about. Being proactive means taking responsibility for your life. It means you don't just wait for things to happen, you take action before problems appear. You try to create the results you want instead of waiting for luck or chance to bring them to you. In simple words, proactive people shape their world instead of just reacting to it. They focus on what they can control, what they can change, and what they can do, instead of worrying about what they cannot change. Let's compare this with being reactive. A reactive person waits for something to happen first and then responds. Their mood, actions, and choices depend on circumstances, the weather, or other people's behavior. For example, imagine it's Monday morning and it's raining outside. A reactive person might say, "Ugh, it's raining again. My day is ruined." They let the weather decide their mood. A proactive person, however, says, "It's raining. Okay, I'll take an umbrella and leave a little earlier." The situation is exactly the same, but the attitude is completely different. The proactive person doesn't let the rain control their day. Another example is studying or learning English. A reactive student might say, "I'll study only when I feel motivated," or "I'll practice speaking when I find someone to talk to." A proactive student, however, takes charge. They say, "I will create a plan. I will practice a few minutes every day, even when I don't feel like it." They don't wait for motivation, they build it through action. And this is why proactive learners improve faster. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They start where they are right now. You can also see this difference in relationships. Imagine this. You have a misunderstanding with a friend. A reactive person might think, "If they don't text me first, then I'm not going to text them either." They wait for the other person to act. They let the situation decide what happens next. A proactive person, however, thinks differently. They might say, "Maybe my friend is busy or upset. I should reach out and clear things up." They take initiative. They don't wait for the problem to fix itself. They take action to solve it. This attitude does more than just solve problems. It makes your relationships healthier, your mind calmer, and your life smoother. Being proactive isn't just about fixing things. It's about preventing unnecessary stress and frustration before it even starts. Now, let's be clear about what proactivity is not, because many people misunderstand this. Being proactive doesn't mean being aggressive. It doesn't mean trying to control every little detail or pushing people to do what you want. Proactive people understand that some things are simply outside their control. They don't waste time trying to control other people's opinions, emotions, or decisions. Instead, they focus on what is within their power, their own thoughts, choices, and actions. For example, imagine your team at work is preparing for a big presentation. One teammate isn't doing their part. A reactive person might complain, "This always happens. People are so lazy." They focus on frustration and blame. A proactive person asks a different question. "What can I do to help the team succeed anyway?" Maybe they take the initiative to communicate clearly with their teammates or organize a short meeting to make sure everyone is on track. They don't waste energy blaming others. They focus on making things better. Proactivity is also deeply connected to emotional control. When you're proactive, you understand that your emotions don't have to control you. For instance, if someone criticizes you, you have a choice. You could react immediately, maybe get angry or defensive. Or you could pause, take a deep breath, and choose your response carefully. That small pause is exactly where proactivity lives. It's the space between what happens to you and what you choose to do about it. And inside that space lies your true power. Life gives us endless situations every single day. Traffic jams, delays, arguments, unexpected surprises. You can't control most of them, but you can control how you respond. That is the key difference between a reactive and a proactive life. Reactive people let circumstances decide their happiness. Proactive people decide it for themselves. Here's something important to know. Proactive people are not born that way. It's a skill anyone can develop. It starts with awareness. Once you realize how often you let outside events decide your mood or behavior, you can begin changing that pattern. You can start programming your mindset to act differently. Since this podcast is called Fluent English Journey, think of being proactive like coding your life with better instructions. You tell your brain, don't wait for perfect moments. Create them. Don't just react, choose wisely. When you hear the word proactive, think of it as a mindset of choice. It's about choosing responsibility over excuses, choosing action over waiting, choosing growth over comfort. Being proactive doesn't mean you have to be perfect or control everything. It's about doing your best with what you have, right where you are. As we continue, ask yourself, in what areas of my life am I being reactive? How can I start being more proactive there? Awareness is always the first step toward change. Once you notice it, you can start living it one small, intentional action at a time. The mindset behind proactivity. Now that we understand what being proactive means, let's go a little deeper. Being proactive doesn't just start with your actions, it begins with your thoughts. Every action starts with a thought. And the difference between proactive and reactive people starts right there, in how they think about life, responsibility, and control. Here's a simple truth. You cannot control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you respond. This idea might sound familiar, but it's one of the most powerful lessons you can ever learn. A reactive mindset thinks, I can't help it. It's not my fault. Things just happen to me. People with this mindset often feel powerless. When something goes wrong, they blame the weather, other people, or bad luck. They wait for life to get easier instead of learning how to get stronger. A proactive mindset, on the other hand, says, I can choose my response. I may not control everything around me, but I can control myself. This is the mindset of growth, responsibility, and confidence. People who think this way understand that while life isn't always fair, they can still choose how to act, how to feel, and what to focus on. That is where their true power lies. Stephen Covey explained this beautifully in his famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He said, between what happens to us and how we respond, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom to choose. Think about that for a moment. Life throws something unexpected at you. A problem, an argument, or a disappointment. And before you react, there is always a small space between the event and your reaction. That space is your power. That is where you decide how your day, your mood, and your life will go. That moment, the tiny pause before you react, is where a proactive life begins. It's that space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. And to make this idea more real, let's look at an example. Imagine you're stuck in traffic on the way to an important meeting. A reactive person might start shouting at other drivers, honking their horn, getting frustrated, and stressing about being late. They let the traffic control their mood and their day. A proactive person, however, thinks differently. They pause and say, okay, I can't change the traffic, but I can use this time differently. Maybe I can call ahead and let them know I'll be late, or I can listen to something inspiring, relax, and breathe. The traffic is exactly the same. The situation hasn't changed, but the experience is completely different because of mindset. When you start thinking proactively, you begin to notice how often your emotions and reactions depend on external things, other people's opinions, small inconveniences, or unexpected events. Reactive people allow these things to control their day. Proactive people take control back. They choose their responses consciously. Being proactive doesn't mean you never feel angry, sad, or frustrated. It doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means you don't let your emotions control your next action. You pause, think, and then act intentionally. Stephen Covey called this idea the circle of influence and the circle of concern. Imagine 2 circles. The larger circle is the circle of concern. It includes everything you worry about but cannot control: global problems, politics, other people's behavior, the past, and many things outside your power. The smaller circle is your circle of influence. It includes the things you can influence: your habits, your actions, your words, your reactions, and your mindset. Reactive people spend most of their energy worrying about the outer circle, things they can't control. They feel stressed, anxious, and powerless. Proactive people focus on the inner circle, the things they can do something about. And here's the magic. When you focus on your circle of influence, it starts to grow. You become stronger, calmer, and more capable of handling life's challenges. Let's take another example. Suppose you want to improve your English, but you keep saying, "I don't have time," or "my environment isn't good for learning." That is a reactive mindset. It focuses on what you cannot control. A proactive mindset says, "I may not have much time, but I can still do something. I can listen to English podcasts while commuting. I can learn a few new words every day. I can practice a little consistently." That simple shift from "I can't" to "I can" changes everything. Being proactive doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is perfect. It's not about toxic positivity. It's about taking responsibility. You take responsibility for your choices, your emotions, and your growth. You stop waiting for luck, perfect timing, or ideal conditions. Instead, you create small, meaningful actions that move you forward. Success doesn't come by chance. It comes from consistency, self-discipline, and mindset. Here's a question for you. When was the last time you blamed circumstances instead of taking action? Maybe you told yourself you couldn't start something because the situation wasn't right. Maybe you were too tired, too busy, or not ready yet. We all do this sometimes. But what if, instead of waiting for things to change, you took the first step anyway? That's exactly what proactive people do. They don't wait for life to become easy. They move forward even when it's difficult. Proactivity is a mindset that slowly changes how you see everything. You stop feeling like a victim of your environment and start feeling like the designer of your life. You begin to understand that your thoughts, words, and actions create your results. You also become more peaceful because you stop wasting energy on things outside your control. When you focus on what you can do, life becomes lighter, clearer, and more manageable. So, the next time something doesn't go your way, maybe you fail a test, miss an opportunity, or face criticism, pause. Ask yourself, what is inside my control right now? What can I do next? That is how a proactive person thinks. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Every challenge becomes a lesson. Every problem becomes a possibility. Every small decision becomes a chance to take control of your story. That is the real power of being proactive. It starts in your mind, and it transforms everything that follows. Why many people struggle to be proactive. Even though being proactive is powerful, many people find it difficult. Why? Because our natural tendency is often to react. Reacting is easier. It doesn't require thinking or self-control. It's automatic. We're also influenced by our environment, our habits, and our past experiences. If you grew up seeing reactive behavior, it can feel normal. Fear, uncertainty, or lack of confidence also makes people reactive. The good news? Proactivity is a skill. It can be learned. It starts with awareness, seeing how often you react instead of act intentionally. Once you notice it, you can start practicing proactive choices, little by little, until they become a habit. So now that we've talked about what proactivity means and the mindset behind it, let's be honest for a moment. If being proactive is so powerful and so helpful, why don't more people do it? Why is it so hard to take action, even when we know it's good for us? The truth is, everyone struggles with this at some point. We all have moments when we wait too long, hesitate too much, or let opportunities pass by. And that's okay. The goal isn't to feel guilty or disappointed in yourself. The The goal is to understand why it happens so you can move forward with more awareness, courage, and confidence. One of the biggest barriers to being proactive is fear of failure. We hold ourselves back because we're afraid of making mistakes or not doing things perfectly. Think about it. How many times have you said, "What if it doesn't work?" or "What if I fail?" That tiny question, "what if?" can stop you from even starting. Here's the truth. Proactive people fail too. The difference is they don't see failure as the end. They see it as part of the learning process. Every step, even a wrong one, moves them closer to understanding what works and what doesn't. Let me share a small personal story. A few years ago, I wanted to start a new creative project, something meaningful that I had been thinking about for a long time. I had the idea, I had the plan, but I kept waiting. I told myself, I'll start when I feel ready. I just need to think it through a little more. Weeks passed. Then months. One day, someone else started a very similar project, and they became successful. I remember feeling frustrated. Not because they succeeded, but because I realized I could have done it too, if only I had acted earlier. That experience taught me something important. Waiting for the perfect moment often means missing the real one. Maybe you felt the same way. Have you ever said to yourself, "I'll start when I'm ready," but that day never came? We wait for the right time, the right mood, or the perfect situation. The truth is, there is no perfect moment. The perfect moment is the one you choose to begin. Being proactive doesn't mean you're never afraid. It means you act despite the fear. Another reason people struggle to be proactive is perfectionism. We often believe everything must be perfect before we act, the perfect plan, the perfect skills, or the perfect confidence. But perfectionism is a trap. It creates endless waiting, endless planning, and very little doing. Perfectionism whispers, "You're not ready yet." And the more you listen, the further you get from your goal. Proactive people understand that progress is more important than perfection. They focus on getting started, not getting everything right. Then there's lack of confidence. Many people hesitate because they don't truly believe in themselves. They think, "I'm not good enough," or "other people are smarter or more talented." But confidence doesn't come before action, it comes from action. Every time you do something small, even if it feels scary, you build a little more trust in yourself. It's like training a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Proactivity grows from that same confidence. Another quiet barrier is waiting for motivation. This is so common. We often say, "I'll do it when I feel motivated." But motivation doesn't always come first. In fact, action often comes before motivation. You start doing something, and then you feel motivated. It's like lighting a fire. You don't wait for warmth to start the flame. You start the flame to create warmth. Proactive people understand this. They don't wait to feel inspired. They start, and the inspiration comes later. Sometimes the struggle is emotional. Life can feel overwhelming, and taking action feels risky. It's natural to want to stay in your comfort zone, where things feel safe and familiar. But as comfortable as it is, your comfort zone doesn't help you grow. Being proactive often means stepping into discomfort, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary for growth. Your environment can also shape your habits. If you grew up around people who constantly complain or blame others, you might unconsciously follow the same patterns. Being proactive often means breaking that pattern and learning to think differently. It's not easy, but awareness is the first step. When you notice yourself falling into reactive habits, waiting, blaming, hesitating, that awareness alone is powerful. It means you're already one step closer to change. The important thing to remember is that everyone faces these struggles. Even the most proactive people experience doubt, fear, and hesitation. The difference is they don't stay stuck there. They remind themselves that they have a choice to move, to act, to try again. And that, my friend, is the heart of proactivity. taking small steps despite fear, imperfection, or uncertainty. It's about choosing to act rather than waiting for life to hand you what you want. You can do the same. The goal isn't to become perfectly proactive overnight. It's not about suddenly changing everything in your life. The goal is much simpler: to take small, consistent steps toward taking more responsibility for your actions and your future. So, if you've been waiting to start something, maybe a new project, a fitness goal, or even improving your English, ask yourself honestly, what am I really waiting for? Is it the right time, or is it the right mindset? Sometimes, the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is that tiny step you keep delaying. Remember, awareness is not about guilt. It's about growth. Recognizing your fears, your perfectionism, or your habit of waiting doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And once you see these patterns clearly, you can start changing them. Little by little, choice by choice, you can build a life that's not just reactive, but truly proactive, a life where you're not waiting for life to happen, but creating it yourself. The power of taking initiative. Now that we understand why people struggle to be proactive, let's talk about what happens when you finally decide to take action. When you stop waiting and start doing, that's where the real magic begins. Being proactive isn't about making big, dramatic moves all the time. Most of the time, it's about taking initiative in small ways. And the truth is, those small actions, the ones that seem almost too simple, often create the biggest results over time. Taking initiative means you don't wait for permission, perfect timing, or someone else to go first. You decide to act even if it's uncomfortable, or even if you don't have everything figured out. It's that small inner voice that says, "I'll try," instead of "maybe later." Here's an example you can relate to. Imagine you want to learn English fluently. You tell yourself you'll start when you have more free time or when you feel ready. Weeks go by, then months, and you still haven't started. But one day, you take initiative. You listen to a short podcast, read a few sentences, or practice speaking for just 10 minutes a day. At first, it feels small, maybe even meaningless. But if you keep doing it every day, one day you'll look back and see how far you've come. That's the quiet power of initiative. It's not about doing everything, it's about doing something. It works the same way in every area of life. Starting a side project, applying for a job, or building a new friendship. Let's say you've always wanted to start a small online business, but you keep waiting to feel ready. You tell yourself, "I need more experience," or "I'll start when things calm down." But that perfect time never arrives. Then one day, you take the first step. Maybe you research a bit, design a simple plan, or talk to someone who's done it before. Suddenly, things start moving. You begin to see opportunities you never noticed before. And you realize that the hardest part was not the work itself, it was starting. Small steps build momentum. Taking initiative doesn't always mean taking big leaps. Sometimes it's as simple as sending the first message to reconnect with a friend you haven't spoken to in years. Volunteering to help with a small project at work. Waking up 10 minutes earlier to plan your day. Each of these small decisions builds momentum. And momentum is what keeps you moving even when motivation fades. Motivation comes and goes, but momentum, the steady movement forward, is what turns small efforts into big results. A proactive person understands this. They don't wait for the perfect plan. They start with what they have. Maybe they don't know all the answers yet, but they know that action brings clarity. Every time you act, you learn something new. Every step, even a small one, gives you feedback, builds your confidence, and makes the next step easier. There's a saying I love: you don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. That's exactly what taking initiative is about. You might not know where your path will lead, and that's okay. You don't need to know everything to begin. You just need to begin. Over time, those steps connect, and what once felt impossible starts to feel natural. A common misunderstanding. Let's also clear up something important. Being proactive and taking initiative doesn't mean doing everything. It's not about overloading yourself or trying to control every situation. In fact, proactive people are usually smart about their energy. They focus on doing something meaningful, not everything possible. Progress is about direction, not speed. You don't have to move fast, you just have to keep moving in the right direction. For example, if your goal is to improve your English, you don't need to study 5 hours a day. Even 15 minutes of focused practice every day makes a difference. If your goal is to build better relationships, you don't need to reach out to everyone. Connecting meaningfully with one person can have a big impact. Small, thoughtful actions done regularly are much more powerful than rare, perfect actions done occasionally. And here's another truth: taking initiative builds confidence. Every time you act, even in small ways, you prove to yourself that you can. That confidence grows. That momentum grows. And over time, you realize that you are not just reacting to life, you are shaping it. When you act, even in small ways, something amazing happens. You start proving to yourself that you're capable. You stop seeing yourself as someone who just reacts to life and start seeing yourself as someone who shapes it. And that feeling is incredible. You begin to trust your own decisions, and that trust gives you the courage to do even more. Think about anyone you admire, successful people in business, education, art, or life. None of them got where they are by waiting for things to happen. They took initiative. They started even when things were uncertain, even when they didn't have all the answers. They failed, learned, and kept going. Their success wasn't built in one big moment, it was built in many small, consistent actions. So let me ask you, what's one small step you've been thinking about taking but haven't yet? Maybe it's starting a course, sending an email, or waking up earlier to work on your goals. What's stopping you from doing it today? Not perfectly, not completely, but simply starting. Because once you take that first step, something shifts inside you. You feel a little stronger, a little braver, and a lot more in control. Remember this: being proactive doesn't mean doing everything. It means doing something that moves you forward. Even if it's small, it still counts. Progress is not about perfection, it's about persistence. The people who succeed aren't always the fastest or the most talented. They're the ones who keep showing up, who take initiative again and again, even when it's hard. So as you think about your own life, ask yourself, where can I take initiative today? It doesn't have to be big, just one small, intentional action. That's how every great change begins, not with a giant leap, but with a single brave step in the right direction. How can you be more proactive? Now that we understand what proactivity means and why it matters, let's talk about how you can actually become more proactive in your daily life. Being proactive isn't something that happens overnight. It's a mindset, a set of habits, and a way of thinking that you develop little by little. The good news is, anyone can learn it. You don't need to be born confident, organized, or perfect. You just need to start practicing simple habits that give you more control over your actions and choices. Here are some practical, easy-to-follow tips that can help you become more proactive every day. 1. Think ahead. Proactive people don't just live in the moment. They also think about what might happen next. This doesn't mean worrying about the future or trying to predict everything. It just means being a step ahead. For example, if you have an important meeting tomorrow, you prepare your notes tonight. If exams are coming, you start studying a little earlier instead of waiting until the last night. Thinking ahead helps you prevent problems before they happen. It's like checking the weather before going out. You take an umbrella if it might rain. This small habit saves time, energy, and stress later. When you train your mind to look forward, you start noticing patterns. Many problems can be avoided just by planning a little earlier. Thinking ahead doesn't require big plans. It starts with small moments of awareness and preparation. 2. Take responsibility. This is one of the most powerful steps toward becoming proactive. Taking responsibility means accepting that you are in charge of your choices and reactions. It's easy to blame others, your boss, your teacher, your friends, or even bad luck when things don't go well. But when you blame, you give away your power. You become reactive. Proactive people do the opposite. They focus on what they can control. If something goes wrong, they ask, "What can I learn from this? What can I do differently next time?" Instead of saying, "It's not my fault," they say, "It's my opportunity to grow." Taking responsibility doesn't mean controlling everything or feeling guilty about mistakes. It means owning your part and using it as a chance to improve. Once you stop waiting for others to fix your problems, you begin to see how much power you really have to change your life. 3. Make small plans. Many people think being proactive means making big, detailed plans for the whole year. But that's often overwhelming. The key is to start small. Plan your day, your week, or even just your next few hours. For example, write down 3 important things you want to do today. If you're learning English, plan to listen to a short podcast, review 5 new words, and practice speaking for 10 minutes. Small, realistic plans build consistency. You feel more confident because you see progress every day. They're also flexible. If something changes, you can adjust without stress. Small plans create big results. Remember, success doesn't come from giant steps. It comes from many small steps taken consistently in the right direction. 4. Solve problems early. Many people delay action, hoping small problems will disappear by themselves. But most of the time, small problems grow bigger when ignored. Being proactive means dealing with issues before they become crises. Imagine you notice a small misunderstanding with a friend. You have 2 choices. You can wait, hoping it will go away on its own, or you can talk about it early. By addressing it sooner, you stop it from growing into a bigger argument. Or imagine you're behind on a project. You could wait until the last minute and panic, or you could ask for help now, fix what's missing, and get back on track. Solving problems early saves you energy, reduces stress, and builds trust because people see that you take initiative and care about solutions. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to face a problem. That's normal. But avoiding it is always worse in the long run. So, whenever something feels wrong or unsettled, act early. Ask questions, fix small mistakes, and handle issues before they grow out of control. Stay positive and take action. The 5th tip is simple but powerful. Stay positive and take action. A positive mindset doesn't mean ignoring difficulties or pretending everything is perfect. It means believing that you can handle challenges. When something goes wrong, a reactive person might say, "Why does this always happen to me?" But a proactive person says, "Okay, this is hard, but I can do something about it." That simple shift in thinking changes everything. It gives you energy to act. Thinking and planning are important, but without action, nothing moves forward. Even if you feel unsure, take a small step, send that message, start that lesson, begin that task. The more you act, the more confident and capable you become. Staying positive helps you see possibilities instead of problems, and taking action turns those possibilities into reality. Putting it all together. Remember, being proactive is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters. It's about thinking ahead, taking responsibility, making small but meaningful plans, solving problems early, staying positive and taking action. You don't have to change everything overnight. Just take one small, intentional step every day. Each step makes you feel more in control, more confident, and more capable of shaping your own future. Ask yourself, which of these 5 tips can you start practicing today? Maybe it's thinking ahead for tomorrow's tasks. Maybe it's finally taking responsibility for something you've been avoiding. Whatever it is, start now. Being proactive begins not with perfect plans, but with one simple, brave decision to act. The emotional benefits of being proactive. When we think about being proactive, We usually focus on action, planning, problem solving, and responsibility. But there's another side, the emotional side, and it's just as powerful, maybe even more important. When you live proactively, you don't just become more productive. You also become calmer, more confident, and more at peace with yourself. You feel a quiet strength inside that says, whatever happens, I can handle it. Self-trust. Every time you take initiative, even in small ways, you build trust in yourself. You start to believe that your actions matter, that your choices have value. For example, maybe you promised yourself you'd wake up early to study English for 10 minutes, and you did. Or maybe you sent that job application instead of waiting. These small actions build a strong relationship between you and yourself. Self-trust doesn't grow from talking about change, it grows from doing something and keeping your promises. Over time, this trust becomes the foundation of your confidence. You stop doubting yourself so much because you've seen what you can achieve when you act. Confidence. Confidence isn't about thinking you'll never fail. It's about knowing that even if you do fail, you'll figure it out. Reactive people often wait for confidence before they start. They say, I'll do it when I feel ready. Proactive people understand that confidence comes after taking action, not before. Every time you act, even when unsure, you send a message to your brain, I can handle this. Each small action adds another piece to your confidence puzzle. Over time, you feel more capable in every part of your life, at work, in relationships, or learning something new. You realize you don't need perfect conditions, you just need the courage to begin. Peace of mind. One of the quietest, but most powerful benefits of being proactive is peace of mind. When you act, plan, or prepare, you remove a lot of unnecessary worry. Most anxiety comes from thinking about things we can't control, other people's opinions, the weather, the economy, or luck. When you're proactive, your focus shifts from what you cannot control to what you can control. That shift brings calm. For example, instead of stressing about an exam result, a proactive student focuses on studying well. Instead of worrying whether people will like them, a proactive person focuses on being kind and genuine. You stop wasting emotional energy on things outside your circle of control. That creates space in your mind for peace, clarity, and balance. I remember a time when I was struggling with a personal project. I had wanted to start it for months, but I kept postponing because I was afraid it wouldn't be perfect. I kept telling myself, I'll start when I have more time, or I'll do it when I feel more ready. But of course, that ready day never came. Weeks turned into months, and I felt stuck, frustrated, and impatient with myself. Then one morning, I got tired of waiting. I opened my laptop and just started. It wasn't perfect, and I didn't have everything figured out, but it was real. That small act of taking initiative instead of waiting gave me a rush of pride and relief. It wasn't just about completing a task. It was about freeing myself from hesitation. I realized something important. Action is powerful, not only because of what it accomplishes, but because of how it makes you feel inside. That day, I didn't just make progress on my project, I regained my confidence. That's the emotional magic of being proactive. Being proactive gives you a sense of freedom. Freedom from constant doubt, fear, and endless waiting. You begin to realize that your emotions don't control you, you guide them. Even when life throws surprises your way, you stay grounded because you know how to respond. You become calmer in chaos and stronger in uncertainty. This emotional balance changes the way you move through the world. You begin to feel lighter, more centered, and more in charge of your own happiness. Now, think about this. What would your life feel like if you focused only on what you could control? What if, instead of worrying about everything that could go wrong, you spent your energy on what you could actually do? Imagine how much more peaceful, focused, and energized you'd feel. Imagine how much mental space you'd free up for creativity, growth, and joy. When you practice proactivity, you also gain emotional stability. You stop reacting to every little problem like it's a crisis. You learn to pause, breathe, and respond calmly. That's because proactive people develop emotional strength through repeated action. Each small decision to act trains your brain to stay calm under pressure, and that skill is something no one can take away from you. So the next time you feel anxious, uncertain, or stuck, remember this. The first step toward peace is action. You don't have to solve everything at once. Just do the next right thing that's within your control. Each time you do, you'll feel a little more confident, a little more peaceful, and a lot more free. That's what emotional growth through proactivity looks like. Less fear, more calm. Less waiting, more doing. Less doubt, more self-trust. The more you practice this, the stronger your emotional foundation becomes. Soon, being proactive isn't just something you do, it becomes who you are. Daily habits of proactive people. If you really want to understand what it means to live proactively, you need to look at the daily habits that shape their lives. Being proactive isn't just about big decisions or dramatic moments. It's about simple habits practiced consistently in the small moments of your day when you plan, make decisions, or respond to challenges. Proactive people don't just talk about responsibility, they live it. They don't wait for motivation to appear. They build habits that create motivation naturally. Let's look at some daily habits you can start building today. 1. Plan your day instead of reacting. Most people wake up, check their phones, and immediately start reacting to messages, notifications, emails, or other people's problems. By doing this, you're letting the world decide your priorities. Proactive people do the opposite. They plan their day before it starts. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just a few minutes of quiet reflection can make a huge difference. Ask yourself, what are the 3 most important things I need to do today? Write them down. That small act puts you in the driver's seat of your day instead of being a passenger. When you know your goals, you make better decisions and feel less stressed because you're leading your day with intention, not reaction. 2. Set goals and review them weekly. Proactive people don't just think about today. They think about where they want to be next month or next year. Having clear goals gives direction to your energy and actions. For example, if your goal is to improve your English, you might decide to listen to 1 podcast a day. Write short reflections. Speak with a partner 3 times a week. But it's not enough to just set goals, you also need to review them. Every week, ask yourself, what went well? What didn't? What can I improve? This simple reflection keeps you aware and motivated. It's like checking a map during a long journey. You make sure you're still heading in the right direction. Goals give clarity, and weekly reviews give progress. That's how proactive people stay consistent and confident, even when life gets busy. 3. Say no to distractions. Distractions are everywhere: social media, notifications, random tasks, and people who pull you off course. Proactive people protect their focus. They know that saying yes to everything means saying no to what truly matters. By removing distractions, you make space for intentional action. You focus on what moves you forward, not what simply grabs your attention. In today's world, staying focused is tough. Our phones, social media, and endless notifications constantly compete for our attention. Every ping, alert, or message is like a little tug, pulling you away from what really matters. Proactive people understand something simple but powerful. Every yes to a distraction is a no to something important. They learn to protect their time and attention. Sometimes that means turning off your phone for an hour, closing unnecessary tabs on your computer, or setting boundaries with people who constantly interrupt your focus. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, but it's essential. You can't move forward if you're always being pulled in different directions. Being proactive means knowing your priorities and having the courage to say no when something doesn't align with them. It's not about being rude. It's about stepping up and taking responsibility for your focus, energy, and choices. Habit number 4. Take responsibility for your emotions and choices. This habit is deeper and more emotional, but it's one of the things that truly separates proactive people from reactive ones. Life is full of challenges. Maybe someone criticizes you. Maybe you face rejection. Or maybe things simply don't go your way. Reactive people often let their emotions control their actions. They get angry, upset, or give up. Proactive people, on the other hand, understand that emotions are real, but they don't have to rule your behavior. They pause, breathe, and respond instead of reacting. For example, if someone says something rude, a proactive person doesn't immediately argue. Instead, they might think, "Is it really worth my energy? How can I respond calmly?" Taking responsibility for your emotions doesn't mean ignoring them. It means managing them wisely, using emotional maturity to choose your reaction instead of letting your emotions choose it for you. Habit number 5. Act even when you don't feel like it. Proactive people know a crucial secret: motivation doesn't always come first. It's not a feeling that magically appears. Motivation is created through action. There will be days when you feel lazy, tired, or discouraged. We all have them. But the secret to consistency is not waiting for the perfect mood. It's doing small things anyway. You might tell yourself, "I'll just start for 5 minutes." And once you begin, your energy usually follows. This habit of starting, even with tiny steps, builds discipline and keeps momentum alive. Remember, perfection is not the goal. Progress is. Every small step you take strengthens your proactive mindset. Each time you act despite excuses, you reinforce your self-control and confidence. A challenge for this week. Here's a small, practical challenge. Adopt one proactive habit this week. Maybe you'll plan your day before checking your phone. Maybe you'll review your weekly goals every Sunday. Maybe you'll say no to one distraction that usually steals your time. Choose something simple and doable. The goal isn't to overhaul your entire routine overnight. It's about taking one conscious step toward living intentionally. Being proactive isn't about being busy all the time. It's about being in charge of your time, focus, and emotions. It's about realizing that life doesn't just happen to you, it happens through you, based on the choices you make. As you move through this week, remember to take the driver's seat of your life. Plan ahead and set intentions. Protect your focus from distractions. Manage your emotions wisely. Act with purpose. Once you start building these habits, something amazing happens. You'll feel calmer, more confident, and more capable of handling whatever life throws your way. So now I ask you, what will your first proactive habit be? Common misconceptions and balance. When people hear the word proactive, they often imagine someone who is always busy, constantly planning, taking charge, and doing something every minute of the day. But here's the truth: being proactive is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters. It's not about working nonstop or trying to control everything and everyone around you. True proactivity is about balance, knowing when to take action and when to pause, when to push forward and when to rest. In other words, real proactivity isn't about speed or control. It's about wisdom, intention, and balance. Let's start by clearing up a very common misconception. Many people have a wrong idea about what it means to be proactive. They imagine someone who is always busy, always working, always in charge, and never able to relax. But that's not what proactivity is. Being proactive doesn't mean acting out of stress or fear. It means acting with intention. A proactive person doesn't feel the need to do everything. Instead, they focus on what really matters. For example, a proactive student doesn't study every hour of the day. They study smartly and consistently, but also make time to rest and recharge. A proactive employee doesn't try to control their entire team. They communicate well, delegate tasks, and trust others to do their part. Being proactive is about making thoughtful choices, not being busy all the time. Sometimes the most proactive thing you can do is stop, rest, and recharge so you can do better later. Balance is key. True proactivity is about balance. It's not about moving too fast or too slow. Think of it like driving a car. If you keep pressing the accelerator without ever slowing down, you will burn out. If you are too afraid to move, you will never reach your destination. A proactive person is like a skilled driver. They know when to speed up and when to take a break. They don't let life push them around, but they also don't push themselves to the limit. Rest is not laziness, it's part of the process. Proactive people know that their energy, focus, and motivation need care, just like a battery needs charging. You can't control everything. Another common misunderstanding is thinking that being proactive means controlling everything, every event, every person, and every outcome. But no one can control everything. Life is unpredictable. Plans change, people disappoint, and things go wrong. Proactive people don't waste energy fighting what they cannot control. They focus on what they can control, and that makes them effective and peaceful at the same time. They prepare for the unexpected, stay flexible, and adapt quickly. They understand that being proactive is not about being rigid. It's about being ready. You might not control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. Rest and recovery are part of being proactive. Proactive people don't just plan for work or productivity. They also plan for recovery. Rest, reflection, and fun are not rewards, they are necessities. You can't give your best if you're exhausted or mentally drained. That's why proactive people make time for short breaks during work, enough sleep, activities that refresh the mind, like spending time with loved ones, reading, or going for a walk. They know that clarity and creativity often come during quiet moments, not just during busy ones. It's about maintaining energy, not just using it. Cultural differences in proactivity. Proactivity is valued differently in various cultures, but the core idea is the same everywhere. In Western countries like the US or UK, proactivity is often about independence and self-leadership. People are encouraged to take initiative, speak up, and make things happen. In Eastern countries like Japan or Korea, proactivity is valued too, but it often shows through harmony, preparation, and collective responsibility. People focus on helping the group succeed. In some developing countries, taking initiative may feel risky because people fear mistakes or judgment. No matter where you're from, proactivity is about taking responsibility for your choices and shaping your future instead of waiting for others to do it for you. Proactivity looks different for everyone. Balance is key because being proactive looks different for every person. For one person, it may mean setting boundaries and learning to say no. For another, it may mean speaking up confidently or starting a new project without waiting for permission. What matters most is why you do it. When your actions come from awareness and purpose, you are being proactive. Even if what you do is rest, reflect, or calmly handle a situation, that is still proactivity. Leading yourself versus controlling everything. Here's something important to understand. Taking control of your life means leading yourself wisely. It means planning, acting, and taking responsibility for your choices. Trying to control everything means fighting reality, forcing things that cannot be forced, and exhausting yourself. The first brings peace. The second brings stress. So, the next time you hear the word proactive, remember this. It's not about running faster, doing more, or being perfect. It's about living with intention, taking thoughtful action, maintaining balance, and guiding your own life in a way that matters. Being proactive is not about rushing, doing everything at once, or controlling the world around you. It's about acting intentionally, staying balanced, and focusing on what truly matters. It's about understanding that rest is part of growth, Flexibility is a strength, and your role is to manage your choices within life, not life itself. And that is perhaps the most beautiful part of being proactive. It teaches you to act with purpose and to rest with peace. It reminds you that the most powerful people are not those who do everything, but those who know when to move, when to pause, and how to stay calm in both action and stillness. Reflecting on proactivity. Let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've explored about being proactive. Being proactive is much more than just taking action or staying busy. It is a mindset, a way of thinking that shapes how you approach life. It's about choosing to focus on what you can control, making thoughtful decisions, and responding to challenges with intention rather than fear or habit. Proactivity is also a practice. You build it through daily habits, small steps, and consistent effort. And ultimately, it becomes a way of living a path that allows you to guide your life rather than simply react to it. When you embrace proactivity, you give yourself the power to shape your experiences, manage your emotions, and move toward goals that truly matter. Progress over perfection. One of the most important lessons about proactivity is that it doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean doing everything at once, having flawless plans, or never making mistakes. Proactive people know that progress comes from consistent, meaningful action, not from waiting for the perfect moment. Perfect conditions rarely exist. Life is full of uncertainty, unexpected challenges, and imperfect circumstances. Yet those who move forward are not the ones who wait, they're the ones who start anyway. They take action, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect. Because each step builds momentum, confidence, and clarity. You don't need perfect conditions to begin. You only need the courage to take the first step. Reclaiming your power. Think about your own life. How often have you delayed starting something because you felt unprepared, unsure, or were waiting for the right moment? Maybe it was learning a new skill, reaching out to someone, or completing a task you've been postponing. The truth is that perfect moment may never come. By waiting, you give away your power to circumstances, fear, and indecision. Proactive living is about reclaiming that power. It's about saying, I may not have everything figured out, but I can take one step today. That single step, no matter how small, is what starts change. It separates people who feel stuck from those who feel capable and in control of their lives. Proactivity and emotional well-being. Proactivity is not only about action. It's deeply tied to your emotional well-being. By focusing on what you can control, taking responsibility for your choices, and acting intentionally, you reduce anxiety and self-doubt. Build trust in yourself. Increase confidence in your abilities. Feel a sense of peace knowing you are moving in the right direction. It's not about avoiding challenges or pretending life is easy. It's about facing challenges with a sense of agency. Each small, deliberate action helps you feel less overwhelmed and more capable of handling whatever comes your way. This is the quiet strength of a proactive life, growing with every conscious decision you make. A small, powerful question. Now, here's something to think about. What's one small action you could take today to make your life better tomorrow? It could be as simple as sending an email you've been postponing, practicing a skill for 10 minutes, planning your day before checking your phone, taking a moment to reflect on what matters most. The action doesn't have to be huge. It just needs to be intentional. Each small step matters. Each small decision moves you closer to the life you want to create. Over time, these small actions accumulate. Before you know it, you've built a life that reflects your choices. As we wrap up this episode, I want to leave you with one simple intention. Be mindful of your choices, even in the smallest moments. Notice the opportunities to act instead of waiting, to plan instead of just reacting, and to focus on what you can control instead of worrying about what you cannot. Remember, proactivity is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice. It's about building habits, taking small steps, and learning to trust yourself along the way. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Over time, taking initiative and acting with purpose will feel like second nature. So today or this week, I invite you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, what is one small action I can take right now that moves me forward? It doesn't need to be big, just one intentional step. Take it. Notice the difference it makes. Reflect on the sense of control and confidence it gives you. Each small step adds up to real, meaningful change. Thank you for joining me today on Fluent English Journey. Keep practicing, keep reflecting, and keep taking small proactive steps every day. Life becomes richer, calmer, and more empowering when you choose to live with intention. And it all begins with that very first step. Proactivity is yours to practice, to shape, and to live. Priorities and values.